This next one, most decision wins. Well, see, you never know. Goddamn, Neil Magny, and
Yeah,
then Bilal Muhammad. What an
with 12.
indictment on the
Yeah.
current welterweight division.
All right. Welcome to Two Fight Fans, where we talk about all things in combat sports. I'm one fight fan, Colin.
And I'm the other Stewart.
All right. So, a couple of news announcements. I guess the first thing that happened this morning, Naoya Inoue fought in Japan, and
Kind of beat the brakes off of TJ Doheny. Well, maybe not beat the brakes. You said you didn't see the fight in full, right?
no, I only saw the result.
Yeah, so for the first like 3-4 rounds, Inoue wasn't really like pressing forward and just kind of waiting for Doheny to come at him and like close the distance. And Doheny was able to circle away and not get like bombed on. And then around round 5, more in round 6, but I think it began around 5. Inoue decided, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. I guess I'll just go forward. And, like, the biggest thing was just noticing that, like, Doheny was landing quite a bit on Inoue, and Inoue had no visible, like, bruising, swelling, anything on his face or body, and even by round 5, before Inoue really started laying down the thunder, Doheny's face was already starting to get kind of misshapen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Inoue just hits. It's just such an equalizer, right? Because it's like, even if Doheny could, because you could like probably score a couple of those rounds for Doheny at the beginning of the fight, but it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it doesn't really matter because as soon as Inoue decides he's just gonna start landing and kind of with like reckless abandon, because even in round 6 and 7 when he was landing, Doheny would fire back and like catch him cleanly, but the stopping power it was, you know. It was a tiny pea shooter versus like a giant 50 caliber, right? It was just
Mhm.
the stopping power was just insanely different. So it was cool. It was cool to see that. It wasn't as cool as the kind of exciting his last fight where he got knocked down in the first or second round and then rallied back to win.
Mhm.
But yeah, it could also be that I'm like exhausted when I was watching it, and I was like, all right, just finish it in a way, just get it over with. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I mean, it was an Inoue fight. You get to watch him do his thing, and he knocks a dude out. He like punches him to the body, which is pretty rude, like quite a few times, and then he grabs his back and like hobbles away. So I don't know if he like herniated a disc by getting punched in the stomach. Like it was kind of a weird ending. But yeah, in a way,
Mhm.
looked like at the very end he was like, "Yep, all right, that's that," and just went on with his day. He yeah, that's Inoue, man, and it's time that he moves up. Let's see if he can get the is it 126 pound or
Uh, yeah, 125,
uh,
126, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the featherweight. Get him all of the featherweight straps. And let's see if he can become the first 3 division undisputed champion.
Mhm.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Yeah, that's all. That's what I saw.
Yeah, I read in the article that I read, his promoter, apparently top ranks Bob Arum,
Gotta
said
love
that
Bob Arum.
he's gonna fight one more time at 122 before moving up.
Yeah, I think he had a different mandatory. This guy wasn't the mandatory, but then the mandatory I think had to pull out of the fight, and so they brought in somebody else who was maybe like second in line.
Oh, I see.
So I still think he has that mandatory that he's supposed to take. He doesn't have to take it, but
No,
um,
yeah.
sounds like Bob Arum knows it's like easy money in Japan to get this guy a squash match, and it just makes him seem cooler and cooler every time he does it. Alrighty.
Alrighty. And then one championship is this Friday on Amazon Prime. But unfortunately, even though we spent the last like 2 episodes or so talking him up, Cade Rutolo had to pull out of his grappling match.
I know it's a bummer. Yeah, so the fight card is not as good, but there are still like 2 or 3 interesting fights on that card. You've got John Haggerty at the
Yep.
top, and so that'll be exciting. We like watching John Haggerty. And there's like quite a bit of 4-ounce Muay Thai. which we love to see. And one of those 4 ounce Muay Thai fights is with John Lineker, who is a former UFC fighter. I don't think he ever challenged for the title, um,
Okay.
but just a tiny little tank of a man, like a Smurf that really got into CrossFit and just has insane power. Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, he's always fun to watch. Mostly he just wings hooks to the body and the head. He doesn't really have much by way of straight punching. He's got a pretty decent leg kick. Yeah, so that'll be fun. Just him coming out there, and he's like insanely durable. So I think he fights at 135, or maybe it's 145 and one. But he is gigantic, not height wise, but just like thickness of body.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so I'll be interested to see him do some Muay Thai. And the great thing is, I don't know where this one event is showing. If it is Amazon Prime, great. I can
Yeah,
just
it
watch it on
is.
Amazon. Oh, great. Easy replay. We all have Amazon Prime. Don't have to watch it live if you're not around. And yeah, there'll probably be some pretty, if anything, it'll be spectacular violence, which I,
Yes.
I like to see. Any other fight on there that you're interested in besides John Haggerty?
Well, I think you before we started, you said that I do like Stamp Fairtex, but unfortunately, that fight is also canceled.
Yep. They lost two
So
two good ones. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's just gonna have to be a lot of Muay Thai that you're gonna watch, but that's good.
yeah,
It's
it's okay.
entertaining. Yeah. And that's I don't. Has there been anything that happened to the UFC card, even though the UFC card's not very good?
Well, there are a bunch of random rumors coming up, which I don't know if they're actually again like true or whatnot. So I didn't want to
Ooh.
put them on our document, but they're like people pulling out of fights again, or like someone posted that the Hamza and Robert Whitaker fight might be off as well.
I mean, yeah. Who's to say? We
Yeah,
won't really know until like the day of the event,
yeah,
because has had quite a few, like massive weight misses or like pulling out like at the 11th hour. So that's
yeah.
kinda how it goes when you fight him. I hope if that does happen, though, that Robert Whitaker just gets a title shot, quickly. I hope they
Mhm.
don't make him fight someone else, because the clock is kinda ticking on him, um, with this turnover at middleweight that we've talked so much about.
Yeah.
Jared Cannonier lost, Israel Adesanya lost, like, we gotta protect Robert Whitaker as, like, the last like, the last rhino that they have at, like, some of these, like, wildlife preserves. And it's like, like 90 years old and they've got like a sniper watching it 24/7 to make sure no one goes near it. It's like we need to do that with Robert Whitaker if he's not going to fight Hamzat, so that he can go and fight DDP one more time. Anyway, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, I saw a couple graphics that posted on social media over the weekend, so I just want to get your thoughts on this. So the first one, the someone posted on the MMA subreddit the top UFC fighters records in title fights, and like we talked about some of these guys. So like, John Jones, he's 15-0.
Yeah,
George St. Pierre, 13-2.
yeah,
Demetrius Johnson, 12-2.
yeah. Well,
Amanda,
hold on. We gotta take back one of those twos
yes.
on Demetrius Johnson's. He definitely did not lose to Uh, what was the second? Oh, it would have been Dominic Cruz. That Henry Cejudo fight where he lost a split decision. Go back and
Yeah.
watch that. It's like one of the biggest robberies I've ever seen in a title fight. So fuck that. Demetrius Johnson, 13-1. That's what I'm saying.
Well, he'd be 14-1 then, right? If he actually won that one.
No, because he's
No,
12 and
13-1,
2.
13-1, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
13
yeah.
and 1. Uh oh. Your inability to do math is showing.
No, I just read GSPs.
Okay.
Amanda Nunez and Anderson Silva, both of them. Amanda Nunez 11-1, Anderson Silva 11-2,
hmm
Jose Aldo 11-4, and then from there kind of drops off. But Matt Hughes was 9-3, Valentina Shevchenko 8-2-1, Israel
hmm
Adesanya 8-4, and Randy Couture 8-6.
Yes. Now, in looking at this, how many of these people because so much of, I guess, like, people who started watching MMA post 2016 or no, 2016 and on, because it was it 2016 or 2015 where Conor McGregor got his double champ status? I can't remember, but, like, right, that seems to be the big mark of, like, real high level success and quality nowadays is everyone wanting to be double champ, double champ, double champ. there's not many people on this list that were double champ. Randy Couture was. He was the original. Israel Adesanya
Mhm.
was not. Valentina Shevchenko was not. Matt Hughes was not. Jose Aldo was not. Anderson Silva was not. Amanda Nunes was, kind of, if we can call 145 a division. Demetrius Johnson wasn't. George St. Pierre was, again, slight asterisk, moving up to fight one-eyed Michael Bisping in the twilight of his career. And then John Jones, I guess double champ again, but again, an asterisk with, like, he beat Cyril Gahn, who mentally imploded, and then refuses to defend against the actual good heavyweight.
Mhm.
Um, it does make it seem that the real, like, the hardest feat in MMA is to kind of just, like, stand the post at a division and try to rack up title defenses over a long period of time, rather than, like, jumping around. Like, if you were, like, a 3 division champion, um, like, this seems more challenging to me than getting, like, 2 or 3 belts in different weight classes. What do you think about that?
Well, I think this also points out the fact that, like, the 2 division champs, like, they didn't spend a lot of time defending
Mhm.
one or either one, with the exception of Amanda Nunes, but,
Yeah.
she had the 145, was it 145? Yeah,
Mhm.
she had it, and then I don't did she ever defend it?
Yeah, she defended it, I think, a few times.
Okay,
She defended against Felicia Spencer. Did she defend it against Jorane Demrandamy? What's the I don't. Yeah, she definitely did defend it.
okay,
It ended up being, I think, a lot of the time whenever they like needed her to come in, and if it was short notice or something, sometimes she'd be fighting. I think people that were also like naturally 135 pounders, and then they're like,
oh.
ah, fuck it, let's not cut weight. Let's just we'll fight at 145. Because the only real, I think, 145 that she fought was Chris Cyborg, and then everything else
Okay.
was like, yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense that, like, some of these people who went for this new feat of being a double champion, like, couldn't defend both titles because it was like already we've talked about how champs only fight like once or twice a year. That would
yeah,
essentially double the number of amount of times they'd fight. So,
hmm
and I just found it interesting that, like, we've talked a lot about these, the champions and the turning over of champions, and like, it's really hard in the modern era now to continue to defend your title
hmm
in, like, succession, when we just highlighted the fact that, like, Anderson Silva did it, like, 16 times in a row, and,
yeah,
GSP had an incredible run. Demetrius Johnson, his run was, like, extremely dominant, so it's really this is kind of like an era where it probably won't happen. We're talking about, hey, if you have 3 title defenses, you're, like, the best champion right now, and
yeah,
I don't wanna discount that at all because, yeah, that's definitely true, but I don't know if we'll see any of these kind of runs anymore.
yeah. Now, in looking at this and in kind of talking about the current champions, I had heard someone propose this. Are the UFC champions now just like bad? Like, are we just in an like in the same vein that like when you were around when John Jones, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and Jose Aldo all simultaneously were like in the depths of their like title reigns, we had like these amazing champions that were just like
Mhm.
light years ahead of everything and kind of elevated the sport because of how dominant they were and of how impressive they were. Are we inversely in an era now where it's just like it's just a bunch of shitty champions. Like it's just right. Not every year is the Super Bowl like winning team this amazing like there are some years where it's like wow it was kind of a stinker and like everyone kind of sucked ass that year and like nobody will remember that Super Bowl. Is that kind of the same thing now with the UFC champions or am I being too hyperbolic?
I think I mean, okay, except for that one reign, which did last a decent amount of time, where we were talking about, like, these like dynastic reigns of these champions.
Yeah.
You've kind of had at times different divisions, maybe kind of that had a champion that wasn't on the same level as the other champions.
hmm
I think that's very normal because, within the sport, like we've talked about many times,
hmm
there are waves of talent that come in. Sometimes there's more, sometimes it's less, and sometimes you just happen to be, you know, when you're coming up, it just happens to be weaker in the division for whatever reason, whether that's the UFC's inability to cultivate a division or just luck of the draw, you know? But like, I mean, if you look right now, you know, in the lighter divisions, you got Sean O'Malley, Ilia Topuria, and Islam like
Yeah.
reigning over there. So
Mhm.
I think they're very, very talented and helping, you know, raise the status of their divisions. You know,
Mhm.
and then you got Alex Pereira, who, you know, I'm a big fan of, and I'm saying Tom Aspinall
And,
is the champion. Well, yeah.
sure.
And then Zhang Wei Li is also pretty talented in the strawweight division, and I mean, Raquel Pennington
Hey,
and Alexa Grasso, I don't know.
uh, yeah, I mean, I don't like because like looking at this, like I look at heavyweight and I'm like, okay, yeah, Tom Aspinall. We have so much weird fuckery at the heavyweight division, whatever. But
Yeah,
like,
I see him as the heavyweight champion right now.
yeah, yeah. So like, okay, we can kind of and who else do we really plug in? We can plug in like when the Brock era was around, or Kane, or Stipe. Um, but like light heavyweight used to have John Jones, right?
Yep.
And now it has Alex Pereira, like a guy who yeah, I'm so excited for that Khalil Roundtree fight, mostly because it's the UFC's first foray into 4 ounce Muay Thai,
Yeah.
not because it's like an MMA fight, right? Dricus Du Plessis, I mean, what do we need to say about that? Like, middleweight had Izzy and Anderson Silva, two people that we just talked about as like top like title fight winners. Bilal Muhammad, Pantoja, right? In an
Yeah.
era where we had Demetrius
Demetrius
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even like that Figgy Moreno, like they both took lumps out of each other, but like, uh, well, Figgy already beat Pantoja, and like that Moreno fight was super close, right? And like Alexander Pantoja keeps winning these fights like by the skin of his teeth,
Yeah.
right? Islam Makhachev, as much as he's dominant, he's not like as dominant as Khabib because it was like 3-2 in that first Volkanovski fight, and then like Dustin Poirier again giving a very good account of himself. So it wasn't this like dominant Khabib coming in, not losing like a minute of the fight and just like demolishing people, right? A,
Right.
a lot more competitive. Bilal Muhammad doesn't inspire a lot. He's a winner. Same thing with like Dricus Du Plessis. Like don't inspire a lot of like, ooh wow, look at this. Um, and then yeah, like Zhang Weili good, but has already lost twice to Rose Namajunas.
Hmm.
Alexa Grasso, everyone is all up in arms. It's not like Valentina Shevchenko, but that division is like kind of weak. And then Raka, I mean, women's bantamweight is dead on arrival, right? Like it's it's not, So uh and like Topuria is like just beginning his run. O'Malley is just beginning their runs. Those are
Yeah.
like the two that like really I could be like, oh, they could be all time great. But again, like you're competing against like an era where we used to have TJ Dillashaw and Max Holloway holding the belt at the same time, or Jose Aldo and TJ Dillashaw. Like they used to be like these really like almost like larger than life champions. And I don't feel that as much with our current crop.
Yeah. I guess that's fair. Like, you know, relatively speaking, a lot of these champions are new. You know,
Yeah,
even Islam Makhachev only has 3 title defenses. So,
yeah.
so
Well,
I
and
mean,
but they don't feel. I mean, they do feel new, but not like go back to like these ones that we always like hold up. Like when John Jones came in and just like made Shogun Hua look like a child, or when
mhm.
Anderson Silva, we talked about it, smashed Rich Franklin's face like it was nothing, or George St. Pierre came in and head kicked Matt Hughes like it was nothing. Like there are these moments where you're like, oh, okay, like this is the new guy. This is the new like who on earth could ever touch this guy? Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel that same thing with a lot of the champions. But maybe that's
Yeah.
just my feelings. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think about like how some of these guys kind of burst onto the scene, and John Jones, you know, had done it, and his you know, it was funny because his lead up to the title fights, it was kind of like a protracted Anderson Silva's in that he was like destroying people left and right. And it
Yeah.
wasn't always the same way. You know, some of them it
Yeah.
was like a diversity of means to win his fights. And
Hmm.
even the ones that went to decisions were like not close decisions,
Yeah.
you know? So in that
Eh,
vein, it was very similar to the dominance that Anderson Silva had. GSP, I remember when he won the title, it was more like it was kind of the same thing. We saw like rising and falling. Like the first time he challenged for the title, he lost, right? To Matt Hughes.
Yeah. In like it was
Like the
like in the
end of the
last.
first or second round, right?
Yeah, and Matt Hughes goes for an armbar, and before it's even, like, locked in, George St. Pierre is already tapping. Like,
Yeah,
it's clear that it's inexperience, and he's like, I don't want that," and he just taps.
right.
But then when he comes back and just starts demolishing everyone, and not
Oh, yeah.
demolishing and, like, finishing, but, like, again, I guess the thing that I'm feeling is, like, the dominance that those people had in every fight. It was like it was always, at most, like, 4 rounds to 1, and, like, clearly 4 rounds to 1 that
Yeah,
the champion
yeah.
would win. And here, it's like, "Ooh, that could be 3-2, it's close, ooh, ooh." Um yeah. There's so much more parity rather than, like, this one kind of, like, superb talent above everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you could say the skill set has then evolved to try to match some of these champions because it is like we said, like back then, these guys were just so much further ahead than the
Mhm.
average or the general feeling of their division. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But even, well, I'm thinking about, like, the most recent people to leave, right? Which is, like, Amanda Nunes, and, like, looking at, like, Raquel Pennington, it's like, okay, but, like, everyone you beat now, Amanda Nunes has already beaten and probably going to have beaten them in a much more, like, impressive way than you will
Right.
be able to. Um, yeah, it's, yeah, whatever. It's well, and also, like, I feel like welterweight now is not as good as welterweight was when George St. Pierre. Well, anyway, whatever. I think we got a shitty crop of champions. That's what I'm gonna say. It's just
Okay, okay.
a shitty crop of champions. I'm excited for Ilya Taporia. I think Sean O'Malley is good. Islam Makhachev is good. But yeah, I'm like, whatever. Anyway, all right. What else? We've just
Alright.
shit on all the UFC champions, so don't be excited about anything. No, but it's still exciting. It's just, it's not. It's not. You're not tuning in to see like who can beat this guy. You're more like,
Right.
all right, let's see what this fight's gonna look like.
Okay. And over the weekend, I got one more thing for you.
Yeah.
ESPN MMA's Instagram account posted something, and it's interesting. They said some currently seemingly unbreakable UFC records and who they think might be able to break them.
Mm-hmm.
So the longest winning streak we just talked about, Anderson Silva was 16. Who could
Mm-hmm.
break this record? Islam Makhachev. He
Yeah.
currently has 14.
Yeah.
What do you
That's.
think? Your thoughts?
I mean, I think he'll. Well, okay. He has to win 3 more then, in order to break the record. 2 more to tie it. 3 more to break it.
Yes.
He's going to fight Arman Tsarukyan and then probably Charles Oliveira next. I think he'll probably beat Charles Oliveira. Arman Tsarukyan is a tougher one to call. But I think, or no, he needs to fight. He needs to win 3 more. Ugh.
He has 2 to tie and then 3 to
Yeah,
3
he's
to beat it.
32, so he's gonna turn 33 this year. God, I don't know. What do you think?
I think if he decides to stay at okay, actually, if he stays at lightweight, I think he still has a shot.
Yeah,
If he moves up to welterweight and has a tune-up fight first, I think that's even a better shot.
yeah,
I think he'll tie it for sure. I think he definitely has the
yeah,
potential to tie it,
yeah,
in these next 2 fights. Like if he were to
yeah,
fight Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, I think he has a very big chance to win both those fights.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, but also it's is again the levels of matchups are different. You
Oh,
know,
what do you look? As part of his run, he beat Neek Lentz, Gleason Tebow, Cajun Johnson, Davi Hamos, Drew Dober,
oh no, I'm
Dan Hook.
saying
Like,
his is more impressive than Anderson Silva's.
no way.
You don't think so?
Anderson Silva was fighting for the title in his second fight. This motherfucker's fighting Nick Lentz in 2017. Islam Makhachev is Chris Wade. Do you know who those guys are? No. Cajun Johnson. Who cares? Right? Davi Hamos. Like, these are all like fine fighters for like, if you're a journeyman. Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, like Dan Hooker, we know is good, but if you can take him down, we've talked about like off his back, he's not that good. Bobby Green. Bobby Green got submitted by Patty Pimblett. Bobby Green got
But
submitted by Patty Pimblett.
okay, but this is again what we've talked about before. These are all at lightweight,
Yeah, that's true.
arguably the most talented and diverse weight class because you've got a mix of the skill, the lightweight, and people dropping down.
Look, man, we shrinkified Dan Henderson back when Anderson Silva beat him, and that small Dan Henderson is gonna destroy Nick Lentz in 2017, right? Like I no, I think
Okay.
towards this latter half of his career and how impressive he's been, he's doing it, but this Anderson Silva had that 16 fight run all for titles or like moving
Yeah.
up for like at a higher weight division, except for the Chris Lieben fight, right? So 15 fights in a row were title fights or like moving up to fight former light heavyweight champions, or just like fighting at a higher weight division.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't think, right? I think the highs on Islam Makhachev's record are better than the highs on Anderson Silva's because, like you said, it's lightweight. These are like high level fighters. Alexander Volkanovski is like pound for pound one of the best when they fought.
Yeah.
But look, man, Cajun Johnson as like, ooh, look at me, I'm gonna tie Anderson Silva. One of these wins is Cajun Johnson. You're filling the sausage with sawdust a little bit, there, buddy. So
Sawdust.
yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I think I agree with you. I think he'll tie it. It's the beating it then, especially because he's turning 33 this year.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be matchup dependent. But again, let's say he goes and he fights 5 more times, but he only fights like top 15 to top 10 welterweights. Like that's impressive, but it's not. I don't know. There's gonna have to be a real reckoning with like what does it actually mean to have the longest winning streak.
Okay. That was
Yeah.
I was going to ask you is it, even if he manages to meet it, would it or to hit the number, would
Yeah.
it match up to the same quality of wins and not just like who he's fighting, but how he's winning too?
Yeah,
Because we
I mean,
just talked about how Anderson Silva basically for 16 of those fights, like only 1 or 2 of them did he look like he might lose or like it was quote unquote competitive, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, well, look, like I could imagine a world in which, let's say, okay, he beats Arman Saryukin, and then let's say he fights, maybe Charles Oliveira gets a number one contender fight again, and then it's like Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, and then whoever wins that, he beats them, and then he moves up, and let's say it's Shavkat Rakhmonov or Kamaru Usman, or like if he beats then one of those high level fighters at welterweight, I'd go, okay, yeah, like we can start talking about that because that's super impressive. Um, but if it's I beat Arman Saryukin and then I move up and I fight, I don't know, who's like a okay fighter at welterweight, like Colby Covington, and then like Ian Gary, I'd be like, okay, well that doesn't really count. Like that's not gonna touch Anderson's record. Yeah, that's what I'd say. But
Okay.
whatever, it doesn't matter. Like he'll get a hold of the number. It's a number thing. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's never fought anyone as bad as Chris Lieben, so we have to also remember that.
Oh,
Yeah,
just really quickly, one of the rumors also I heard Kobe Covington versus Dustin Poirier.
that'd be like I know they've been talking about doing that fight for a long time. I'd always been really hesitant because Dustin Poirier would be outsized by Colby Covington, and Colby Covington has really good wrestling, and so that I feel like it'd kind of like be it'd be like a grind fest and like not very entertaining.
Mhm.
Um, but the fact that it seems Colby Covington has no more knees and like can't wrestle anymore, yeah, I'd be happy to see it. Right, like that
Okay.
that
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah.
right. Yeah, why not? Is like just get Colby Covington out of the rankings. Like just get him out of there. Right, if he's gonna fight, like let's do this thing where like Dustin Poirier gets a payday and we can pretend there's beef. Blah blah blah. Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just see Dustin Poirier outstriking the bejesus out of
Yeah.
Colby Covington. If Colby Covington can't take him down, or which has we've talked at length about Dustin Poirier and his wrestling and things like that. Like
Hmm.
it's decent, but not at the top level.
Yeah.
So if Colby Covington was able to just, like you said, kind of wrestle him and grind it out, then he
Hmm.
could get the win. But I don't think that's going to happen based on what you've been describing and how we've been seeing Colby Covington in the last few years. Also, just
Yeah.
Colby Covington is just kind of insufferable to me. So
Of course. No, she's well, it's like that's the thing is like I'm like he hasn't been in an exciting fight since like the first Kamaru Usman fight way
mm,
back in the day. So it's like why are we still giving this guy shots?
yeah,
But if it's a payday for Dustin Poirier, I'm happy for that and like an easier fight because he's probably not going to get injured because like Colby Covington can't deal damage really at all.
yeah,
Yeah, so that fine. Fuck it. Sure, why not?
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. The second record that ESPN MMA posted, most UFC wins Jim Miller at 26. And who could break this record? Max Holloway with currently 22.
So what do you think? Do you think Max Holloway fights 5 more times? And do you think Jim Miller fights no more times?
I think Jim Miller doesn't fight anymore.
I think you're mistaken. I think he keeps going, right? He didn't
Well,
retire after.
well, not only fight but win.
Yeah.
You think
Well, I mean,
Jim Miller could fight and win again in the lightweight division?
what he has a win. He has a win this year. He won in January. Yeah, he could.
Was it January that he won?
Yeah, against Gabriel Benitez.
Oh,
Yeah. So like, why not? What they do with Jim Miller again? This is another like one where it's like Jim Miller has 26 wins, but like the past, I don't know, 10 years or like at least 5 years, what they've done is like anytime there's somebody who's like kind of a hot prospect that looks like they might make it into like the top 20, 25
Mhm.
at lightweight, they have them go through Jim Miller. And then Jim Miller usually has been really good at like beating these newcomers because he's got a lot of veteran savvy. And you're like, okay. Max Holloway is coming off of a knockout win over Justin Gaethje, who was supposed to fight for the title, right? Like, again, this is another one where it's like the wins are very different between Jim Miller and Max Holloway.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. So that's my thing is like I don't know because I think Jim Miller might have another 10 fights in him. Like
Jesus.
he just sticks around and like if he just keeps fighting like guys coming off the Contender Series, and they use Jim Miller as kind of a measuring stick of like, are they really ready to fight kind of higher level competition? Jim Miller can probably rack up like 4 or 5 more wins easily. Max Holloway is going to fight Ilya Taporia. I'm going to assume he's not going to win that one, and so he's still at 22 wins. And then is Max Holloway like? I guess the thing is Max Holloway's career going to take the same trajectory as Jim Miller's, where he goes, "I'll just stick around and fight to cash a paycheck," or is he going to go, "Well, I can't win the title." There's not. Maybe I'll stick around for 1 or 2 fun fights, maybe a Dustin Poirier, maybe a Conor McGregor fight, and then I'll call it a day because I don't really want to stick around anymore. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't think, I don't think the most UFC wins title will ever be held by someone who like really reached a really really high peak in the UFC.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
It's gonna be held by guys who just kind of
Like journeyman.
yeah, like guys who are just like fuck it, I'm just here to get the paycheck because I think what like Andrei Arlovsky also was really close to this one as well. But then
Oh, really?
he's out of the UFC. Yeah, and like I think also Donald Cerrone was right guys that like just never could make it all the way to the top, but kind of treated as like I'm clocking in and then I'll clock out at the end of the day.
Right.
So yeah, that's my thought. Do you think Max is going to do it? You think he's going to put together? I guess that's the thing. 5 wins and Jim Miller's not going to get a single other win.
Well, yeah, I think that depends. Like I thought again, if he stuck at lightweight, he'd have a better shot at that. But like if he goes down to featherweight, and then is he going to stick around in featherweight? Because Max is also he's not as old as Jim Miller, but he's in his 30s,
Yeah,
so
but he's got miles on him, man.
he does. I mean, he's been fighting the UFC for a long time, and in wars too. Not
Yeah.
like he's got like you said, a lot of miles on him.
Yeah. But like I guess like let's say he goes in October and like one punch knockout against Taporia, right? He just like
Okay.
flat lines him with the first punch he throws. Now we're at 23 wins. He now needs to get 4 more victories at featherweight as the champion to do it. So he's got to defend his belt 4 times.
Either that or move up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then fight
that's
Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. Like, yikes. I
yeah,
don't know. I
yeah.
don't know.
And I don't see him as being one of those guys who sticks around to just like get wins, not to
Yeah.
clock in, clock out. I think he will stop fighting when he's either at the top or can feel himself like falling off the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone's beating Jim Miller's record
Yeah.
for a long time. Because I also think like Jim Miller's gonna probably fight like probably 2 or 3 more times. Because there's still plenty of people for him to fight. He could fight Joe Lozon. He could fight any kind of like older guy or any of these like really young guys that are super inexperienced have like 4 wins off the Contender Series. And yeah, and he can keep doing that because that's kind of what he's done, right? He beat Gabriel Benitez. He beat Jesse Butler. He beat Donald Cerrone, Nicholas Mata, Eric Gonzalez. A lot of these guys don't even have Wikipedia pages, right? Like he can just keep doing that and keep cashing his like what $200,000 checks and be like, great.
Mhm.
And I think the UFC likes that, right? Because he's like a very reliable guy to just always put on a fight and always be a good measuring stick and always show up. So
Yeah.
no, Jim Miller will stand uncontested, I think.
Okay. Okay.
This next one, most UFC fights. Yeah, see, Jim Miller, 44.
Yeah.
Now hold on a minute. On ESPN MMA, they say the person most likely to break this record would be Raul Rosas Jr.
Because he's like 19.
Great. 44. That means Raul Rosas Jr. would not have to he'd have to take probably 4 fights every year for 10 fucking years to tie this record.
Yeah.
I'm watching Raul Rosas Jr. This guy isn't giving me real longevity vibes, especially because a lot of his wins are I'm going to come out and so overwhelm my opponent with athletic dynamism that the second his athleticism drops off, especially at 135. I don't know. Maybe they'll keep him around on a Tony Ferguson 8-fight losing streak so that he can win this thing. Oh, that's another fight that Jim Miller could take. He could fight Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
This is a bullshit one. Who else? Let's see. Most UFC fights. Let me see if there's who else is active in the UFC who's closer to this than someone being well, he's really young. What does that mean? He's really young. Fuck off. Andre Arlovsky at 42, but he's out. Donald Cerrone at 38, he's out. Clay Guida at 36, he's out. Rafael Dos Anjos 35. God, Rafael Dos Anjos would need 10 more fights.
Yeah.
Jeremy Stevens, Charles Oliveira's at 33, but Charles Oliveira's not going to fight 11 more times.
No, yeah, probably not.
Neil Magny.
I mean, it's literally just because I think Raul Rosas is just so young and he is being touted as a hot prospect.
Yeah, whatever. How many fights does Raul Rosas Jr. have in the UFC? You know who I think actually is probably the closest? Probably Neil Magny. I can see Neil Magny just like Jim Miller sticking around just for a long time, fighting people on the up and up.
Okay.
That I'd probably say he has the better chance. But again, no, nobody's gonna beat Jim Miller. Jim Miller is just stuck around endlessly. Okay, so he's had 4 fights in the UFC. Yeah, so Raul Rosas Jr. would need 41 more fights if Jim Miller stopped fighting, which again, I assume Jim Miller's going to fight at least one more time. He would need 41 more fights. And he is young. He's, 20?
Yeah.
But still, 41 fights. We assume 3 fights a year. So that's 13 years, 14 years that he'd have to continue fighting. So that'd be in his, mid-30s at bantamweight.
He's definitely going to move up. He's so big for 135.
Yeah, man, I don't buy it. This Raul Rosas Jr. kid, I know everyone's all excited about him, but I'm not seeing anything that makes me think, anything other than yep, he looks like, a normal.
He looks like a 20-year-old fighting.
Yeah, he looks like a normal prospect, right? He looks like he has innate talent. He looks like he has good instincts. He looks like he has the kind of just no the requisite athleticism that you kind of need to be a professional athlete, and great. But he's not John Jones. He's not Chris Weidman. He's not anyone where I'm holy shit, right from the start.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, fuck
right.
that.
Next one. This I didn't know. The most career takedowns. GSP has 90 and Merab has 79.
Damn. Get it, Merab. Merab will probably break this. He might break it in the next fight. Because how many takedowns did he? I think he had close to 40 takedowns in the. Or am I crazy?
What?
In the Perion fight? Let me see. Merab. Let's see how many takedowns per takedowns.
Yeah. What is his
5 minutes? Let's see. Merab Dvalishvili. He averages 6.43 takedowns per 15 minutes.
Okay.
So 2 takedowns every round.
Yeah.
So if we're just doing the basic ass math, he needs 6 more rounds of fighting.
Yeah.
to break this, I think Merab will probably have 6 more rounds of fighting in his life.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll break this one. Yeah, that's especially because like once Merab takes people down, he's not very good at holding people down, right? He's not like kind of like Khabib had really low takedown percentage, but like finally when he did take you down, you were never getting up. Merab is kind of the opposite. He just like endlessly
Yeah.
takes you down, and then it's like, oh shit, and you get back up, and he's like, all right, well I'll do it again. Which is again kind of different than George St. Pierre, who
I was just gonna say, yeah.
yeah, um,
But also, like, GSP would use his takedowns like very masterfully, but he also wouldn't chose not to take people down a lot of times.
yeah.
Like he would just use his boxing and striking, and whereas Rob is like, this is my one path to victory. I need to just keep using takedowns. So
Yeah. Yeah, he'll probably smash this record. I mean, unless he gets flatlined instantly against Sean O'Malley and then decides to call it a day, which I doubt will happen. The thing I will point out though, which I like was going to be a part of my analysis when we talked about the the title fight coming up is like Merab's style is so predicated on his like natural like athleticism and like ability to like just endlessly grind and
mhm.
eat punishment that the
Yep.
second he starts to have athletic fall off, his whole style is going to immediately implode and be
Right.
useless.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just not going to work. So can he get what is it, 12 takedowns before then? Well, if he has two 15-minute fights, like it sounds like he probably will be able to. Yeah, and I assume he'll get at least one takedown against Sean O'Malley. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Merab will take this one. Um, but goddamn, George St. Pierre still standing the test of time. Most takedowns,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
Khabib and Islam have been fighting, right? And Islam's
Yeah.
had what, a shitload of fights to like take all these people down, and he's still not doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. George St. Pierre, I miss him. What a cool fighter. Yeah. All right. This next one, most decision wins. Well, see, there we go. Goddamn, Neil Magny, and
Yeah.
then Bilal Muhammad. What an
With 12.
indictment on the
Yeah.
current welterweight division. Like, this is not like a good. Like, this is not the stat you
This is
want,
not a
right?
good record. This is not what you
No,
want. No.
no. And one of them's our champion, right? Again, you're kind of like, this isn't that. We just went from George St. Pierre, this like fucking Greek god, 90 takedowns, and then it's like, well, there's a lot of decisions. Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad's old, I guess, is the thing, and I think Neil Magny, kind of like Jim Miller, will stick around and keep fighting. So I think, no, I think Neil Magny will keep.
Yeah, I just but then again, like we said, Bilal Muhammad finds ways to win fights, and
Yeah,
if he decides to stick around as well, but he's also pretty old, so
yeah, like, and I don't know if he's gonna fight. Well, so did you see this? Right, Bilal Muhammad had said like he really wanted to be active and he wanted to try to fight in December,
yeah,
and then it sounds like they'd offered him a fight in was it late October or November against Shavkat Rakhmonov, and he
yeah,
said like, no, I actually want to like rest until the new year, which is fine. It's his prerogative. But now he wants Shavkat versus Kamaru Usman to like
yeah.
knock off a
Fill the
contender.
meantime. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I think you just have to fight Shavkat. I think that's
Yeah.
just what happens. But we'll see what happens. I'd be interested to see a Shavkat versus Kamaru fight. Yeah, I don't think Bilal is long for
No.
a title reign.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, now this is an indicting one. It's kind of like when everyone would always say like Demetrius Johnson had the latest finish in like a championship because he like got the armbar at like 4:59 of the fifth round. And everyone was like, "Whoa, isn't that impressive?" He got the finish right, and it's like that just means that like he didn't get it. He like it took him 25 minutes to get the finish. Like that's not impressive. That's not like a cool stat. That's like, ooh, it took a long time to get that finish, didn't it? You were 1 second away from going to a decision. Like that's not. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's not an impressive stat. Same with like most decision wins.
Right.
Yeah, I think has Bilal Muhammad and Neil Magny ever fought? Because that's a fight I feel like I could fall asleep to, like ASMR. Let's see here, right? Like that's a
Damn, that's brutal, man. Shit.
that's look, man. I love like I will remember the name Bilal Muhammad became a UFC welterweight champion. He is, and like I've said, he is a winner, right?
Yep.
He wins. Uh, he's just not an entertaining fighter to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
which like that's not his job, right? Like I'm not one of these people that's like the whole point of this is like you're supposed to like provide me entertainment. You're supposed to be the best fighter you can and try to win fights. And he does that. Oh, no, he has not fought Neil Magny. Oh boy, I can't wait for the retirement fight between both of them. That's gonna be terrible. Cool. Bilal Muhammad would wipe the floor with Neil Magny, but it'll be a very slow wiping of the floor across 15 minutes. Yeah, brutal, man. Look, I hope Bilal Muhammad, he deserves all of his flowers. He beat Leon Edwards like roundly. Did things that nobody else has been able to do in this division. So very good. But no. Okay. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Most performance bonuses. Charles Oliveira at 19. Goddamn, 19.
Yeah.
Who could take this record? Tom Aspinall with 7?
I don't know. So I don't think that's the person who has the next highest performance. I just think it's just ESPN trying to say something. But one, I don't think this record's going to be broken anytime soon. And two, definitely not by Aspinall.
Yeah, no way. Most performance bonuses in the UFC. Who else is like close to the record? Charles Oliveira has 19. Donald Cerrone is not here. Nate Diaz is not here. Joe Lawson is not here. Now look, Jim Miller, he's at 15. And look, if they keep throwing Jim Miller on these Apex cards and he keeps knocking out or submitting these up and comers, he could do it. He could do it. Dustin Poirier, Anderson Silva, Justin Gaethje. Man, Justin Gaethje. He'd have to have 7 more fights. Same thing with Max. He'd have to have 7 more fights. And we have to assume Charles Oliveira isn't fighting again. Nah, this isn't happening.
No.
Also, I don't even know if Tom Aspinall is going to fight. He'd have to fight, 13 more times and get knockouts every single time. I don't think Tom Aspinall's fighting 13 more times in his career, right? He's heavyweight. Well, I guess heavyweights age longer. But again, his style, again, is so predicated on being
fast. Yeah.
Yeah, way faster and more athletic than everyone else at this division. That just like once he gets older, that's not going to work. No, Charles Oliveira. No, he's our bleach blonde king. He will.
19. Jesus.
It's like every single fight he has. Yeah, and like whoever he fights next will probably be a performance bonus, right?
Yeah.
Because it'll probably either be fight of the night or he'll get a finish and they'll give it to him.
Yeah.
So no. And fuck you with this like, saying it's Tom Aspinall. Look, I love Tom. I want him to be called the undisputed champion. But no, stop this. Stop this silliness.
Yeah.
All right. Fastest submission, 19 seconds. Ronda Rousey. Who could break this one? Tom Aspinall. What's Tom Aspinall getting submissions? He's knocking everyone out. What are you talking about?
That's just what ESPN said. I think it's
what
just
are you
because
talking
of
about?
I can see the theory in that his submission game is so much higher than everyone else's in the division, where someone just tries to like shoot on him and he's just like, okay, guillotine. Like, like that's what I could see theoretically happening.
Is his submission game a lot better? Like, we rarely see him submit anyone.
I mean, we don't know in the octagon, but he is we talked about this. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. That's like what he started with, right? That's like his bread and butter. He just happened to develop his hands where he's just, oh, I'm also really fast and I'm just going to knock anyone else out before we can even get to the ground.
Also, hold on a minute. A cursory glance at fastest submissions in the UFC shows that Oleg Toktarov at UFC 6 got a 9-second submission. Justin Martin had a 14-second submission. Ronda Rousey herself had a 14-second submission.
Hers was 14?
Like, yeah.
Look at who?
Kat Zingano. Frank Shamrock, who they keep trying to delete from history, had a 16-second one. Marcus Aurelio had a 16-second. Terry Edom had a 17-second. Dennis Hallman had a 20-second. Like, there's a little revisionist history going on here. No, I think well, so one, there's already people who've beaten this record in the UFC. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Also, it's definitely not going to be Tom Aspinall. It's definitely going to be like Gilbert Burns this weekend, or it's going to be like Charles Oliveira at some point. It's not going to be Tom Aspinall. What are they talking about? No. Stupid. No. Not happening. Anyway. All right. Well.
All right.
We ended up talking a long time about silly, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah. That's what you do. I mean, there's a lot of MMA this weekend, and a lot of like fights, right? There's the one championship, which isn't really MMA, but like Octagon, which I think is the Polish organization or German organization, is having a fight, and Buchinger, Ivan Buchinger, the guy that Conor McGregor knocked out to get into the UFC. He's fighting, like defending his title.
Okay.
There's a Bellator event this weekend. If you're interested in fucking Bellator, there's a Cage Warriors event this weekend. There's UFC. There's a lot of MMA this coming weekend. I will probably watch none of it. Uh, but yeah, that's if you're a shit-eating wild man and you want to watch a bunch of fights, they're there. Yeah.
All right.
Anything
Yeah.
else before we wrap up?
No, that was just I saw those things. Thought about you when I saw them, so that's why I
Yeah.
put them on our little document thing.
What is this thing with Jamal Hill?
Oh, I thought that was just hilarious because Jamal Hill talking shit about like, oh, the knockout wasn't right because I didn't get time to reset after the what I thought was a foul. It was just some edit that someone posted. I thought it was funny.
Jamal Hill has got like, I don't know. He really is not about that like rise above the noise mindset,
No.
He's like, I'm gonna be pissy and pedantic the whole fucking like time that I fight in the UFC, which
Yeah.
is really weird because it's like Jamal, you're not. What have you? I mean, I know he beat a 43-year-old Glover Teixeira, and he looked good in that fight. But then, like, what else have like you really done? I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I hope he comes back and gets a fight though. Him versus Yuri, I think would be pretty cool. But that's about it. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he needs to get over it. Like he got knocked out the same way that everyone else gets knocked out by Alex Mahara. So I don't know why he's like, oh, that wouldn't have happened. It's like it did happen, my man.
Yeah, we all saw it.
Yeah, we all saw it. We all saw it. Yeah, just I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? These are all silly little boys talking nonsense. Great. Well, this has been Two Fight Fans podcast. I'm one Fight Fan Stuart.
I'm the other Colin.
And next time, I don't know. We'll find something else to talk about. We're getting close to UFC's Sphere Noche Saudi Arabia Bonesaw card.
A week and a half.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Because that's a card that we can actually like look forward to. This one that's coming up this weekend is like it's got one fight on it. Well, it's got two. But yeah. Anyway. All right, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.